This is Section 10, Lecture 1. In this section, we're going to be talking about public opinion and interest groups' influence in U.S. foreign policy. This correlates with Chapter 7 of your textbook, and the interest group section will correlate with Chapter 9 of your textbook. When scholars view different areas of public opinion in U.S. foreign policy, they divide it into four general sections. There are those who support our active engagement in the world, whether it be in social and trade issue areas, or whether it be in military areas as well. And these would be considered internationalists. They support both cooperative and militant approaches to global affairs. They see that the United States should be active in its leadership role in the world, despite the issue area. There are those who see the United States and its policies as being problematic, domestically and internationally, and believe that the United States should think about itself first rather than cooperating in the world. And those would be considered isolationists, rejecting both the cooperative and militant internationalism, and favoring a reduced role for the United States in global affairs. Some are favorable of only cooperative internationalism and oppose militant internationalism, and these would be considered accommodationists. That is, accommodating to our friendly relationships throughout the world, and see the role of the U.S. in the world and its foreign policy as being based on the cooperation in international organizations, the cooperation in collective security agreements, our alliances, and cooperations directly with other nation states on solving global problems, such as environmental problems, addressing poverty, hunger, disease, so on and so forth. And then a fourth section of the U.S. public favor the militant approach to U.S. foreign policy, but oppose our enrollment and involvement in international organizations, and oppose a cooperative approach to internationalism, and favor unilateral or going it alone types of policies. And these would be considered hardliners. And so here I have made my own graph where you see the four different groups and what they stand for. Accommodationists support cooperative internationalism and oppose militant internationalism. Internationalists support cooperative internationalism and also support militant internationalism. Isolationists oppose both militant internationalism and cooperative internationalism, and hardliners oppose cooperation with the rest of the world but support militant internationalism. If we see this study here coming from table 7.2 of your textbook, the variation between internationalism and isolationism that we discussed in chapters 1 and 2 can be seen in a long-term series of public opinion polls. If we look at the post-Vietnam era, that was one of the eras where the United States wanted to roll back our involvement in the world. That is because of the devastation of the Vietnam era and the political consequences of that as well. But still, only at that time, 24% of the American public wanted to stay out of world affairs completely. Over time, there has been a gradual reduction in internationalism and a gradual increase in isolationism among the sentiment of the American population. And if we look at more recent statistics, 2014 is the most recent year listed here. We see then, potentially because of the long-term efforts, the costliness in both blood and treasure of the wars in Afghanistan and the war in Iraq, of our fight against terrorism, that the desire of the American population to take an active role in the world affairs is at its lowest level since 1974, 35 years or so. And its desire, the American public's desire to stay out of world affairs, is at its highest level. Over time, we see this fluctuation, and if you remember back to our lectures in the second chapter on the history of U.S. foreign policy, we have fluctuated between internationalism and isolationism as elements of our foreign policy, but oftentimes we see then that public opinion does drive that political action. When it comes to the politics of the United States and political parties or political ideologies, there are matches that can go along with those four types of views on foreign policy among U.S. citizens. Now, these aren't perfect. However, generalizations do help us. Those people who can be considered political liberals most oftentimes will fall in line with the accommodationist viewpoint. That is, they support cooperating with other nation states on solving global problems. However, they oppose militant internationalism. Political conservatives, particularly those who in most recent years have been considered neoconservatives, favor militant internationalism, but do not favor the U.S.'s participation in international organizations and cooperation on those global issues. And so they would be considered hardliners. Those people in the middle of our politics, political moderates of both political parties, account for the internationalists. And we could really say that throughout the Cold War era, and even in the post-Cold War era, the internationalist mindset has dominated our politics and our foreign policy. We have taken leadership roles in international organizations. We have taken leadership roles in guiding the international economy and trying to address any number of international problems. But our history also shows us that we have also participated greatly in militant internationalism in this time as well, supporting our allies, selling them arms, engaging in proxy wars, and even engaging in wars outright. And so political moderates tend to go along with both of these areas of involvement in the world. And it's where you see this desire or policy mindset of a more active role in the world that is shaped by the views of American exceptionalism, shaped by the views that America should be the leader in the world, using our primacy and using our hegemonic role. One of the interesting things about public opinion in U.S. foreign policy and how it overlaps with political ideology is that those people who tend to be isolationists can either be considered very liberal or very conservative. And this is an interesting outcome, that you would have someone on the far right and the far left side of the political spectrum agreeing about thinking about America first. The very liberal argument is that the money that we spend abroad, and particularly the economic interaction that we have abroad, should be better focused at home. And that is, they focus on the problems that we have here in the United States and argue that the money that should be spent here, that we do spend around the world, should be spent here. They also focus on the long-term effects of globalization, and that is where we see industries going overseas and harming employment here in the United States. The very liberal elements of our political ideology have oftentimes been aligned with blue-collar workers, particularly those in labor unions. And so they would be very against specific types of economic internationalism. The very liberal are also against engaging in wars around the world. On the very conservative side, we see isolationists oftentimes for the same economic reasons. Not necessarily that they support labor unions, but they do tend to tie themselves with the ideas of economic nationalism, that we should focus on the strength of our own economy first, rather than allowing our businesses and industries to help other nation states grow economically by offshore industrialization, shipping jobs overseas, those types of things. Also, the very conservatives sometimes oppose involvement in other nation states' conflicts. They view the world and its problems as their own. That is to say, the very conservative mindset or political ideology, those who would be considered isolationists, believe that if the world faces problems, they should be able to solve them, or at least attempt to solve them, on their own, and not spend U.S. taxpayer money in other nation states. Now, as I said at the top of this, these aren't perfect fits, but they are highly predictive of what specific policies those segments of the population may support when it comes to foreign policy ideas, and they're tied to a number of other political and social characteristics that I'll discuss on the next slide. When we talk about public opinion in foreign policy, there tends to be splits based on any number of social indicators. Gender. Men tend to be more supportive than women of military action in the role. Race. Blacks oftentimes have historically been more supportive of detachment or isolationism and skeptical of military intervention. One of the arguments here is due to the social and economic inequalities here in the United States, arguing that the money that we spend abroad should be spent here at home on education, on healthcare, on bringing the poor and disenfranchised in the United States up in their living standards. There oftentimes are generational differences in foreign policy as well. And those life experiences, the history, the time that you grow up in, will influence what people of that generation think about foreign policy. Should we be more engaged? should we be less engaged, so on and so forth, is based on foreign policy. Well, you may have people of the Vietnam generation arguing that maybe we should be less engaged militarily. We may even say that of the current generation. We just have to wait until future polling tells us that. There's also a difference along economic and education lines when it comes to beliefs on foreign policy. Oftentimes, the more educated and wealthier people tend to be supportive of cooperative internationalism. Now, oftentimes this is called the liberal bias of education. We couldn't necessarily say that there's a liberal bias in wealth, but if you take economics classes, if you take political economics classes, if you take international organizations classes, and any number of other types of courses, you are exposed to the theories and the ideas, the underpinning notions of what cooperation with the rest of the world does for the United States and how it benefits us. And so the more educated understand these theories and perhaps maybe believe in these theories, and therefore are more supportive of them when they go into active foreign policy. When it comes to wealthier supporting cooperative internationalism, the belief of scholars is that the wealthier perhaps have more of a direct personal stake in foreign affairs. That is, they may be tied to multinational corporations who want to do business abroad, for example. And so therefore would be supportive of cooperative internationalism based on their own personal benefit. Religion also is seen as a distinguishing characteristic in foreign policy beliefs or public opinion. Polls show that regular churchgoers are more apt to believe in American exceptionalism, that the U.S. is God's sort of chosen nation, that we have a special mission in the world to lead, spreading our ideas. Jewish and Muslim Americans, of course, are going to favor different positions regarding the Middle East, particularly Israel and Palestinian policies of the United States. And so these social and economic indicators, depending on your race and your gender and your age and your class and your religion, all of those color the way that people view foreign policy. And this shifts over time. We talked about in Chapter 2 this variation between isolationism and internationalism. And this is referred to as the mood of the country at any given time. The climate of opinion depends on the more recent history or the context of that opinion. Scholars point to a consensus between both political parties in our country during the Cold War era. Both were supportive of both militant and cooperative internationalism. Both supported anti-communist efforts. And so during the Cold War era, there was an ideological consensus on either side, the right and the left, of the political spectrum. But due to the devastation of the Vietnam era, we see a divide begin generationally between the World War II generation and their children, the baby boomers. We see then a rise of more leftist ideology in our nation state as well. And we see a greater bit of diversity even on both sides of the political spectrum during the Vietnam era. And so some Democrats were in favor of the war, some were opposed to it. Some Republicans were in favor of the war, some were opposed to it. And so there was this more personal and contextual influence on public opinion during that time, not necessarily ideological. During the late 1970s, because of the hangover of the Vietnam era, even through the 1980s, the U.S., or at least the public opinion itself, was more introverted, focusing on domestic concerns. After the Cold War, in the 1990s, internationalism gained support, but it was more based on cooperative internationalism. The spread of democracy to those former Soviet states, the spread of capitalism and economic markets throughout the world. This is really where the U.S. led after the fall of the Soviet Union. And of course, after September 11, 2001, public opinion supported more activist roles in foreign policy. And many argue that this was due to what is referred to as the rally around the flag effect. And that is, when a nation state is under threat, when it is attacked, public opinion and being stronger and supporting the president and being more patriotic and supporting a role, a leadership role, a more activist role in foreign policy tends to be much more heightened. And that was the case in the early 2000s. And so then, to sum all this up, public opinion varies based on political ideology. It varies based on socioeconomic indicators. And so an individual's values, their perceptions, their experiences oftentimes color what they believe about foreign policy. Sometimes public opinion is on a case-by-case basis, that those other indicators may be pushed to the side. The example would be the diversity in opinion during the Vietnam era. Public opinion is going to vary by issue. Perhaps people are supportive of militarism. Perhaps people are supportive of economic policies, more or less so than each other. Political ideology and the political party stance also influences where people stand on foreign policy. A political party has platforms, has messages, has ideas. Maybe not everybody is aware of them. And that allows politicians and parties then to drive what the public opinion of their members may be. Helps to shape the public opinion of their political party's members. And so then we see a situational context. This last point, isolationism, perhaps after Vietnam, perhaps after Iraq and Afghanistan, are reactions to bad situations. And so then we see this back and forth, this fluctuation in public opinion on foreign policy based on any number of factors in our society.